So first thing I want to talk about tonight is like my story and my path briefly. I mean, Mike gave you a little bit of an outline of where I've been and what I've done. So I'm just a good old Waterloo County country boy. I mean, grew up outside of St. Jacobs. As Mike said, I was born in Listowel, but I think we lived there for 1 month and then moved down to Milverton, and then eventually like lived down in the Kitchener-Waterloo area out in the country just outside of Heidelberg, close to St. Jacobs. So grew up in the country, and early years, I mean, when we first moved from my little town there, I went down and I think I was about 9 or 10, I think, when I first went down there, and I would have been a novice player, but the parents were so concerned I was so big I was going to hurt somebody that they wouldn't allow me to play for the novice team. So they put me on a Pee Wee House League team in St. Jacobs. So that was great. Had a good time. We won our Pee Wee House League championship. So the next year, my first year Pee Wee, I went back out for the team, and I didn't make the team. So I went back and played another year of Pee Wee House League, and we won the House League championship again. And then a funny thing happened. You know, when I went back for my second year of Pee Wee, I went from being cut to being the captain of the team. And it just shows, like, you know, it's funny how things go, how kids progress at different rates, and what happens like over the summertime and different months. But I went from being a player that couldn't make the team to being the best player on the team. And then I think when we talk about claims to fame, I think when people ask me about that, I say, well, my number one claim to fame is I was an original member of the 1971 Elmira Sugar Kings, and we just celebrated in the fall 50 years. So it was great to get back, but those 50 years, guys, I guarantee you they go back by in a flash of the eye. So I played 1 year for the Sugar Kings. As Mike said, I got drafted by the Kitchener Rangers. And in my third season, I was the captain of the team, and it was a great experience. Being part of the Kitchener Rangers was certainly, a highlight of my career. And then got drafted to the Rangers. Now, that's when things got interesting. Was pretty much a minor leaguer. I did play 2 games. I did have 1 weekend in the National Hockey League, and we played in Chicago game 1, and on Sunday afternoon we played the Montreal Canadiens. And we were about to win. They were about to win their 4th Stanley Cup in a row. So they were pretty good. But I remember one particular face-off. We had a face-off in our zone, and I was standing right like in front of Guy Lafleur. He was my check. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, man, I hope somebody takes a picture of this. Now, we could talk about focus at this point, and perhaps my focus wasn't exactly where it was. But anyways, it was a pretty cool moment to be on the ice with so many would turn out to be so many Hall of Famers. And then after 5 years, pretty much in the minors, it was time for a change. And this happens in everybody's career and everybody's life. And you have to be ready to change, and then you go for it. You grab it and you go for it. And I ended up going to France. As Mike said, I was there for 13 years, initially as a player. Then I became a player coach. And from there, I started my coaching career, went to Switzerland. And from there, I was just kind of like, from 1994, it was just kind of like, okay, I was in Switzerland for, a little over 20 years, and had, and in that time got to go to Germany and Austria and Sweden and Norway, and really got to see some really interesting things in hockey, meet some really great people. But what did I learn along the way? And when Mike asked me to talk to the team tonight, it was kind of like, well, what am I going to be able to bring to you guys tonight that's going to be able to help you, become better people and better players? And all I can do is I can talk about some of the lessons that I've learned in my life. And one of the great quotes I like this, was talking from Lou Holtz, who at the time was the head coach of Notre Dame football. When he would address the freshman class of new players that would come in, and he would tell them all the same thing. He said, the next 4 years of your life, the greatest influence on you will be the people that you meet and the books that you read. And he would say, he would tell them, he said, be sure you're looking for quality in both. You're looking for the quality of the people that you hang out with, the people that are that you're going to play with, your friends, and read. You can see a lot of great stuff. And here's some of the books that I really like. And again, this PowerPoint presentation I've sent to Coach Mike. So if you have any information or want anything off of this, just ask him. But I would particularly point out the two books on the left, Winning Every Day by Lou Holtz. He's funny as hell, and it's very entertaining. And then Hockey Tough, who was written by a friend of mine, Dr. Saul Miller, about the mental part of the game. And he's written several books, and I highly encourage you to get that book. I mean, you can buy it and share it or whatever. And then my Bible for team building is Pat Riley's book, The Winner Within. And if you don't know who Pat Riley was, look him up. He won I don't know how many championships with the Los Angeles Lakers. He was a great basketball coach, but a lot of great life lessons in these books. And about skill development, develop players, I think this is really a great read as well. The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. And as you can see in the title, it's about unlocking the secret of skill in sports, art, music, and math, and just about anything. And Daniel talks about what it takes to be really, really good at whatever, whether it's sports, art, music, driving an F1 race car. I mean, he talks a lot about that, and it's really a great book. So let's first of all talk about destiny. I mean, I did not know when I was 16 years old playing for the Elmira Sugar Kings that I was going to be a lifetime hockey professional, first as a player and then as a coach. And what happens is that you believe that destiny just happens. I do not believe that we have the power of choice. We make good decisions and we make bad decisions, and we choose the path that we walk. And the decisions that we make will definitely influence the type of character that we develop. And our character, gentlemen, is what decides our destiny. So character is something that you can work on, but I do not believe for a second that everything is written in stone beforehand. We choose the path that we walk. We make those decisions. So one of the things I'll do is that when I go into a new team every year is I will talk to them. I will send them a little PowerPoint, and I will say, okay, guys, what do we absolutely need in our team this year to have a successful season? What are the elements that we have to talk about or we have to have? Well, I break it down to this. I said, out of these 5 things, and you need all of them, talent, chemistry, and this is team chemistry, leadership, commitment, strategy, and tactics. I'll ask them, I said, out of these 5, what is the absolute number one thing that we need to be successful as a team? Now, right away, there's nobody that first of all chooses talent or strategy and tactics, no matter how brilliant my tactics are. So it comes down to this: leadership, team chemistry, and commitment. Now, I'm just going to talk a bit, just for a second, about leadership. And it comes down to these 2. But in leadership, I like this quote by Steve Yzerman: I always try to do what is best for the team. He captained a few Stanley Cup winners. He was one of probably the greatest leaders of all time in the National Hockey League. And I love that quote. I always try to do what's best for the team. And then another player you may not have heard so much, Albert Einstein, is that leading by example is the best way. It's not only the best way to lead, it's the only way. You lead by example. And so if I only talk about that, about leadership, guys, that's all you need to know. You do what's always best for the team, and you lead by example. But first of all, let's talk about talent. Okay, talent's important, but there have been a lot of talented players that did not make it. And there's a lot of talented players out there today that will not make it. And why is that? As much talent as they have. Well, I can tell you. I can tell you exactly why that is. Here are the 10 things that require exactly 0 talent. And if a talented player has not made it, has not really realized his potential, it's due to the lack of all of these, some of these, or 1 or 2 of the important ones of these. And when I look back at my own particular career, not having this framework to go by when I was growing up, I could pretty much check every box and say, yeah, that was the kind of player that I was. Wanted to be on time. I had exceptional work ethic that I got from my parents. My effort was always there. My body language, I tried to be positive. I always brought good energy. I tried to keep a good attitude. I had immense passion for the game. And I always listened to try to do what my coaches told me to do. And whenever I had a chance, I like to work on my game and do things extra. And I always felt that I was prepared for the game. I never showed up not thinking about the game, having thought about the game all day long, and did whatever I want to do. But these are things, guys, that can help you be better players. Because what it does, it takes a very average player But if you do these 10 things very well, you become an exceptional player just by doing these things that require zero talent. Now, tactics, there are brilliant coaches out there that know everything about the game. They're hockey professors, but they've never won a thing. You know, they've never won. They've never figured it out, what it takes to build a winning team and what it takes to coach a winning team. But what I really want to talk about is commitment. And commitment, it really is the glue that binds everything else together, because you could have the most talent, you could have great leadership, you can have great team chemistry, you can have Mike and Jason's brilliant tactics. But if you're not committed to the team goals, if you're not committed to be the best player you can and make your team the best it can every day, you don't have anything. It will all fall apart. So it really comes down to commitment. And at the start of it right now, to build yourself as a player and to build a winning team, it's all about forming good habits. And good habits are what you do in practice every day. And I'm going to show you what I call the pyramid of success here. And this has been in some shape or form in all of my dressing rooms for probably the last 15 years that I coached. When I originally stole this from Kevin Constantine, when he was coaching the Pittsburgh Penguins back in the day, I changed it a little bit, but essentially the idea was the same. You at the top, okay, you have champions. At the very bottom of that, you have to work up the pyramid. And at the very bottom of that is forming good habits. And that is every day. Now, forming good habits, that's pivoting with your eyes on the puck, stopping at the second post after a shot, opening up, keeping your eyes on the defenseman when he's under pressure, trying to make a pass. This is getting on defensive side of your check. These are all little things that you work on every day. And then it goes to playing hard, playing smart, playing as a team, mental toughness, and sacrifice. And sacrifice is the hardest one to get, and that's why it's at the very top. And that's when everybody's playing for each other. Maybe somebody has to accept a different role. Maybe somebody has to take a little less ice time. Maybe somebody has to block shots or take a hit or do whatever. But that's what it takes to be a champion. And this is something that's tried and true in a formula I've used for many years. So let's talk about choosing a path. And I want to talk about choosing your path. Like my path kind of fell into things. You know, I went from being a minor player in Elmira to joining the Sugar Kings to getting drafted by the Kitchener Rangers. But I had choices to make along the line. I had opportunities to go to the U.S. to some really good schools, but I chose to play at home in Kitchener. And everything else just kind of fell into place. But it wasn't a ride. After my first year professional, I played in the American League in Province my first year, and I had a great season. But then I had a motorcycle accident in the spring, and that set me back a couple of years. Well, by the time I got back to where I was already a third and fourth year pro, and I was a minor leaguer. So, but as it turned out pretty well for me. So now what are you guys going to do? And it's kind of like, you know, as you go through, and I was talking with Coach Mike about that, about your team, that you guys are all, you know, 16, 17 years old, and you're trying to figure things out. First of all, I can tell you that I'm 66 years old and I haven't figured everything out. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next. So don't get too stressed out if you don't have a set plan or you don't have a really great idea of what you want to do. But what you do need to do is that you need to develop options for yourself. And that is having a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And that plan A might be, okay, next year I want to get a tryout with the Kitchener Rangers. Or I want to go to, you know, to wherever. And plan B might be, well, maybe that's not going to work out. I'm going to go to a junior team. I'm going to try for Brantford, the Elmira Sugar Kings, or Listowel Cyclones. And then there's plan C, and that can be whatever you want to make it. So, but the thing is you have to develop options along the way. But I would encourage you to be proactive in the most way. Is that, first of all, decide what direction you want to go, choose the path you wish to follow, and then start to make things happen. Make people aware, coaches aware, general managers aware that you're interested in their team and that you would like to play for them. You've heard good things about their team, and contact them. I guarantee you there are not a lot of players out there, 16, 17, 18-year-old players, that are contacting general managers, telling them that they would like to play for their team. And right away, that gets you on the radar. And these times, when there's not as many games and there's not as much scouting going on, it's a chance to get yourself noticed and get yourself put on the radar. And then after that, you're just looking for an opportunity to show what you can do. But be proactive, choose a path, and then make things happen. So what's going to happen though, guys? And it happened in my career where, I mean, I love the game. I always thought I was going to be an NHL player. I always thought I was that close. And then I remember after my 4th year pro, I was playing in Salt Lake City, which was in the old Central League, which was a St. Louis Blues farm club. And I had a really good season. I had a great season. I felt I was ready to roll. I had a great playoff series, and I felt I was ready for a shot at the National Hockey League. So after the season was over, I talked to my agent, and I said, phone up Mr. Francis. Emil Francis was the general manager of St. Louis at that time. And I said, ask Mr. Francis what my odds are of making the team next year. And he called me back in about 20 minutes, and he said, Larry, he said, well, he said this. He said, they're about 1,000 to 1. And I said, 1,000 to 1? I said, come on, man. I said, I've got it. We can do better than that. I said, let's go for a buyout, and then I'll try to catch on with another team and someplace where I think I can have a shot. Well, we signed the papers, and 3 days later, the WHA folded, like the old Western or the World Hockey Association. So there was me and 200 free agents. So I couldn't get a sniff, guys. I couldn't get an invite to any NHL camp. And the phone call that I had the one day was my agent, who called me up, and he said, Larry, he said, there's no NHL teams that are interested in you. Maybe it's time to think about doing something else. Now, that was a hard day. But you know something? He was straight with me, and I took it to heart. And I said, okay, what's my plan B? So my plan B was going back to Port Huron, the International Hockey League, and I played for a year there. And I did not get a National Hockey League contract, so I went to plan C. Plan C was going to Europe, and I never looked back. And it's the way that things go. But even then, okay, so you have your plan A, plan B, plan C, but there may come a time where you're just going to say, as far as advancing and playing at a high level of hockey, maybe it's not in the cards. But here's the thing. If you love the game and you stay in the game, no matter what it is, wherever you're playing, whether it's a senior league, a Sunday morning beer league, whether you're playing junior C, junior D, or junior E hockey, if you love the game and you continue playing, hockey can open up an enormous amount of doors for you. You meet so many people through hockey. I've met so many great people through hockey, and you get connections through hockey. So there's a lot of different things that hockey can lead to, but the lessons that you learn now from Coach Jason and Coach Mike as you play this game, about those 10 things that we talked about that don't take any amount of talent, being on time, great work ethic, good body language. Okay, these are the things, attitude, these are the things that will carry you through and set you above other people around you, and you will be successful if you follow that. Now, the title of the talk was Grab the Wheel, and what I'm talking about is grab the steering wheel of your life, grab the steering wheel in your career, and make it happen. You're the only one that can make it happen. Nobody knows your thoughts better than you do. You can get a family advisor or agent or whatever, and that's okay. You might want to go that route, but at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make things happen. And I encourage you to contact people, contact things, like go out and be that person that's going to put their foot out in front of them and say, this is who I am, and this is what I want to do. And you will get noticed. Absolutely. Now, what I'm going to leave you with is, again, some things that I've learned. And these are something that for leadership, we talked a little bit about leadership, is about my 12 rules for leadership. Rule number 1 is get angry, then get over it. And trust me, this is something I've had to work on, because I do lose my shit once in a while, and I do get angry. But what I've learned is that it doesn't really help, is you have to get over it, refocus, and get back in the game and get your mind back on what you're doing, okay? Get angry, use it, but get over it. Number 2, admit your mistake and take immediate action to correct it. Don't bullshit people. If you mess up, admit that you messed up and take immediate action to correct it. People will see through that. If you get known as a bullshitter, you're on a slippery slope. And if you're going to take advice from anybody, make sure they're an expert. So that being said, you better be sure the advice I'm giving you guys right now is make sure that you are listening to an expert. All I can say is that I've had a heck of a long career in hockey. I've learned a lot, and mostly from the mistakes I've made. So I want you to take that to heart when you take away from this. And I'm hoping, guys, you're going to take away a couple of things from this chat. Number 4, be more prepared than your opponent. And as a player, make sure that you've done everything you possibly can, that you've got your rest, that you've eaten correctly, that you've trained well, that you're doing everything that you have to do to be in the best shape you can at the start of that game. And if from a coaching point of view, you want to make sure coaches that there's nothing unturned that you haven't taken a look at or haven't prepared for in practice leading up to that game. And optimism is a force multiplier. Things tend to move towards and become what you think they're going to be. Things tend to move towards and become what you think you're going to be. And that's just about the power of positive thinking. And I'm a big believer in that. If you're thinking positive, you teach people well, good things happen to you. And when you lose, and I don't use that word very often, when you lose, do not lose the lesson. I tell people that you learn a lot more from your failures than you do from your successes. When you win a game, you think everything's great. You know, you coached well, you prepared well. But when you go back and you watch the tape afterwards, you say, oh, my goodness. I said, we were lucky to win that game. You see that you weren't as well organized. They hit a few posts, and yet that's when you have to go. But learn from everything. Learn from your failures. Learn from your losses, and you haven't really lost anything. Strive for perfection, everything that you do. Whatever you do, be the best that you can. My dad told me one time, he said, son, if you're going to dig ditches, be the best ditch digger that there is. And I've always kind of held that. If whatever I've done, I've always tried to be the best at whatever I could be. And improve the path that you walk. Now, this is something that, you know, when I was very fortunate to grow up with the parents that I did. They were great role models for me. I had great coaches that were also great role models for me. But I remember hunting with my dad. And we would be walking through a path, like through some forest and whatever, and there'd be a tree down or some branches down or whatever. He always stopped to clear the path. Okay, maybe sometimes he didn't have a chainsaw, but if we could, we always stopped and cleared the path. And that always stuck with me. And that's something that as you walk through life, you're going to walk a path. But the people that you meet, try to improve their paths as well as you are as you're going through life. Okay, it all comes back to you. It all develops positive karma. And concentrate on the things that you can control. And I will go back again to those 10 things that we talked about that require zero talent. Those are all things that are under your control. There's some things that you cannot control. But people ask me about, you know, coaching at a high level and being the head coach in some very, very high pressure teams, how I dealt with the pressure. I said, well, first of all, I focus on the things that I can control. And the rest of it, I just have to have faith that the rest of it will work out. And I work hard. I treat people correctly. I'm a good person, and things tend to work out. But concentrate on the things that you can control. Don't worry about the other stuff. It'll work itself out. Laughter kills stress. I'd like to put in some more funny stories, but we're time limited. But trust me, like with my coaching, if you ever played for me, I love to laugh, and I love practical jokes like everybody else. And I think it's great to keep things loose. Now, this one. Do what is right, not what is necessary popular. I will never be a politician because of this particular rule that I have. Because I'm always going to do what's right. And as Steve Eiserman said, he's always going to do what's best for the team. I'm always going to try to do what's best for the team and best for my players. Even though maybe what I'm doing is best for one player and might piss off another player, I have to be able to explain that the player that's pissed off why I made the decision that I did. And if I'm consistent with the way that I handle my team, it's accepted. They may not be happy with what I have to say, but they're always going to hear the truth. And they're obvious. And I'm never going to tell one person one thing and another player another. But do what's right, not what's popular. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is choosing the right. In the church that I attended, when our kids were baptized, they got baptized around 10 years old, and they were presented with rings. And on the ring, there were 3 letters that stood for CTR, which stands for choose the right, which basically is said, like, what you come down to it is, what would Jesus do in this particular situation? Well, this is 2022, and we live in a very complicated society, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of decisions that you guys have to make every day. But you know the difference between right and wrong. You know what's good for you, what's not good for you, what's good for your family, not good for your family, what's going to make you a better person, a better player. You know the difference between the right or wrong. Choose the right, and you'll always be on the right path. Now, that's all I've got. And right now, there's my email address. If anybody wanted to email me or ask any questions or anything, you can contact me directly. Coach Mike and Coach Jason have my information as well. And then, so right now, if you've and don't be afraid. I mean, asking questions. If anybody has any questions, again, I'll stick around as long as I have to and answer your questions. if you have any questions about anything, about, you know, my career, about hockey, playing in Europe, whatever.
Well, while my mic is on, I will say that I do love the, especially the aspects of like staying positive and visiting your goal and stuff like that, because I do believe that, you know, one thing I've always said to the teams I coach is it takes 1,000 good comments to get rid of one negative one. So, you know, I think that's something that everybody can take forward with them, not just in hockey.
Absolutely. I mean, words do have consequences, and I always try to use the positive approach on stuff. So, but only human, guys, and sometimes, yeah, losing your getting loud at a particular moment is good, but you can't be loud all the time. It takes you have to kind of dose that. But I remember, I'll leave you one more story I'll talk about is that when I was at a World Championships one time. I was there as a journalist at that particular World Championship, and the Finnish journalists were circulating around asking different hockey coaches and hockey people about what they thought was really important for development for young players, because at that time Finland was kind of in a crisis. Like, they'd had a Timo Solani and a Jari Kurri, but they went through a stretch of about 7 or 8 years where they were just producing grinders, and they were trying to figure out what it was. So they asked me that question about what the most important part is in the development of a young player. And my answer was this. I said, it's absolutely critical that the first 2 to 3 coaches that a player has develops in them a love of the game, that they just love to go to practice. They love to play. They love to compete. They love to improve. They just love to be on the ice, shooting pucks around. They just love everything about the game. And to do that, it has to be an enjoyable experience. And so what I get back to before, guys, if you've been that fortunate to come this far in your career right now, and believe me, there's a lot of players that dropped out that will never get to the level that you guys are playing at right now. This is a very high level that you're playing at. And if you're playing at this level, you will continue if you really, truly have a love of the game. And I think that's really an essential part of it. If I was able to last as long as I did, it's because I truly love the game.
How awesome is the Spangler Cup in Davos?
Spangler Cup in Davos is every year, not this year, but every year.
I mean, like, being there, how awesome is it?
Oh, awesome! It was fantastic. I mean, I remember the first time my first experience with Hockey Canada was the Spangler Cup, and it was an amazing energy when you walk into that room, that Team Canada room, for the first time, because you're bringing in players from all over the place, like the United States, Canada, Europe, all over the place. But they have one thing in common, is that they're all Canadian. They're all proud to be Canadian. And when they pull that jersey on, they get 25% better. The energy level in those dressing rooms is electric. And the tournament itself is just pure fun. They do a great job up there. It's in the mountains, in the Swiss mountains, Alps thing. If you ever had a chance to watch it on TV, they got this big old rink. It's got these big old wooden rafters. And Hockey Canada does a great job of organizing for the families as well as the players and the coaches. And everything is first class. But it's really, really an experience. And I wish that on everybody as a coach to participate, either as a player, coach, or even to go just experience it, to go spend that week in Davos and live the atmosphere of a Spangler Cup. It really is a fun time. First question is, just wanted to ask, do you think you'd end up in the NHL, AHL if you took the school route? Honestly, the one thing that I would do differently in my career was I would have gone to school. As I think that I was a big guy. I think I was kind of a late bloomer, to develop. And when I was 16 years old, I had to make that choice. I had offers from University of Michigan, Clarkson College, and New Hampshire. And all three really, really great schools. But, I was, my mom and dad weren't college people. They were all grew up on the farm and came off of that. Were very successful because they worked their asses off. But it wasn't really in the cards. And I was a first round draft choice to Kitchener, right next door. And they never told me what to do. I know that they were hoping I was going to stay in Kitchener. But my thinking at that time is well, the World Hockey Association was going full bloom. So everybody coming out of junior hockey was signing, right, professional contracts. So my thinking was, well, if I go to Kitchener, I'm there for 3 years and I turn pro. If I go to school, I've got to go play 1 more year in Elmira, and then I've got 4 more years of school before I turn pro. That would be 5 more years before I turn pro. So I went to junior. But and looking back with hindsight, I would have definitely been a better player coming out of university had I had the opportunity to be there, because I would have practiced more, less games. I would have been older, more mature coming out of there. So from my side, when my sons had to make that decision, I encouraged them to go the university college route. And it's not for everybody. Junior hockey was great. I mean, it turned out very well. But if you have an opportunity to go to school, play hockey, have fun. I mean, school is a blast. Have fun. I said that's really the best when you can combine the two of them together. But if I had a choice, I definitely probably would have gone the other way. And then next one is about, what about your thoughts about playing hockey in the NCAA? Well, it's pretty much the same. I mean, with my sons, they both played. My son walked on. My oldest son walked on at St. Lawrence. He was with them for 1.5 years and then transferred to Geneseo, which was a Division III school. And then my youngest son, he played ACHA Division I at University of Utah. So he played 4 years at Utah, and both of them had great college experience, out of that, and learned a lot. And they were able to get their education on that and move on to other things. Like both of them have been very successful, like in what they're doing right now in life. And I think a lot of it is from the lessons that you learn. So NCAA, absolutely. I mean, that's an absolute great goal. But again, make it happen. Don't wait for them to come and write to you. I had a letter when my son was 14 years old. He wrote to Jerry York, the coach at Boston College. And for some reason, my son got kind of fixated that he wanted to go to Boston College. He wrote a letter as a 14-year-old to Jerry York, and Jerry York wrote him back. And that was really, I was very impressed by Jerry York at that time. But this is the types of things that you need to get noticed. Get yourself on the radar, pick out some schools, and they don't have to be Boston College. I mean, Division I, Division II, Division III, club hockey, ACHA teams. There's a lot of really great places to have fun and play hockey and get an education. So check it out. There's a lot of really, really good leagues and good places to play. It doesn't have to be, Minnesota. It doesn't have to be North Dakota. I mean, there's a lot of places to play. But you have to do your homework and find out what works for you as far as hockey and as far as education. Very much to Mike and Jason for giving me the opportunity. And the last thing I'll say, guys, go hard, have fun. Okay? It goes by in a heck of a hurry. Have fun along the way, but you got to grab the wheel. You got to make it happen every day. Commit to what you want to do, and then do what you have to do, what's going to get you to be the best player and the best person you're going to be. Commit to those 10 things that don't take any talent. You will be successful in whatever you decide to do. So thanks again, and good luck for the rest of the way. Hope you get back to playing pretty soon.